Hey there, it's Red. So today I'm just going to be talking about my Bibliothon wrap-up, and it's honestly a lot shorter than I thought I was going to have to talk to you guys about, but in my defense, as much as I loved the Bibliothon, and the Bibliothon was so much fun, and ended up being quite a bit busier than I anticipated because I ended up having to go out of town for a baby shower and some family stuff, and I ended up working a lot of overtime that week. So there wasn't quite as much reading time as I initially planned, but for what I did do, I had fun and I still managed to complete my challenges. I'm just really glad that I doubled up because it ended up, otherwise I don't know if I would have met the challenges with how little time I ended up having. So the first challenge I completed was the group book where I reread Paper Towns. And as you guys, for anyone that watched the live show, you're aware of my thoughts. And I did really like this book. I wasn't particularly attached to any of the characters, but I did really enjoy it. And I wasn't a huge fan of the ending. I don't know. I feel like there was a lot of like build up, and then it just sort of plateaued. And I don't know that I minded what happened in the ending so much as it felt like a big letdown because I feel like not enough happened or wasn't written in a way that felt like enough happened, so I felt very incomplete after reading this book. And again, not even because of what happened in the ending, just sort of how it was executed, I guess. This book completed my group book reading challenge as well as my social issue challenge. And that's because this book talks about depression and suicide. And for any of you guys that saw my reading as an antidepressant video, you guys are aware of how I feel about the topic of depression. So that was a big part of the reason I chose to use this book as my social issue challenge. My second read for the Biennial Bibliothon was The Queen by Kiera Cass. This is a selection series novella that revolves around Queen Amberly, who, if you guys have not read the selection series, Queen Amberly is Prince Maxon's mom. So this is her time during her own selection. And I really liked this, and I felt very frustrated because I really didn't want to like King Clarkson in this because I hate him so much in the selection series, but it was impossible not to like him, and it was very frustrating. But it was really good. The third book I read in the Bibliothon was Number the Stars by Lois Lowry, and this book completed my Reread a Childhood Book challenge as well as a book set in a foreign country since this takes place in Denmark and I live in California, so not even close. I remember when I was a kid, I absolutely adored this book. Adored it. I don't love it as much in the reread. I thought I was really going to love the reread of this book, and it was okay, but I honestly kind of dragged through it a little bit. Luckily, it's a kid's book, so it's an easy read, but I did drag through it a little bit, and it wasn't as good as I remember it being, but then again, I'm 23 years old now, so. But I do think that this book is very important, and I know this was based off her friend's experience, the author's friend's experiences during World War II. And even though I wasn't in love with this book a second time around, I still recommend it for kids, and I think it is such an important book. It's such an important book. This book is essentially about a girl, and she has blonde hair, blue eyes, and essentially fits the description of the Aryan race that Hitler was so fond of. And if you guys are familiar with the Holocaust terminology. And despite this, she was living in Denmark, and her family friends, who were also her neighbors, and as well as her best friend, were Jewish. And despite the fact that the Nazis were, sort of taking up residence in their country, they hadn't really done anything yet. But then, all of a sudden, the Nazis start taking away the Jewish people of the country to concentration camps. So this girl and her family have to risk their own lives in order to save the lives of their friends so that they won't get taken away by the Nazis and try and get them to a neutral country that's free of the Nazi invasion. So I think this book is incredibly important, and as a history lover, I love this book. but I feel like just did not enjoy it as much as I did when I was a kid, but I still think it's a very, very important book. My fourth book of the biennial Bibliothon was The Iron Daughter by Julie Kagawa. And I had about 300 pages left of this, so this is my did not finish. And at first I had some trouble getting back into it, but once I kept reading, I ended up being so into it, I couldn't put it down, and even when I wasn't reading it, I was thinking about reading it, and I love that. And I loved the first book, so I don't know why it took me so long to finish this one. Actually, I do, because the first time when I started reading this, the first biennial Bibliothon took place, and that's why I stopped reading it, and then I never picked it back up, which was ridiculous because I loved it. The problem with reading this book, though, was that I liked it so much that it put me into a reading slump, and all I wanted to do was read the third and the fourth books in the series, which I did not own. I do, however, own them now, because the second I finished this book, I ordered them. But I did not have them in time to finish the rest of the Bibliothon. And it really kind of messed me up on the rest of my reading. Despite my time crunches, it really messed me up on wanting to read anything else. So after I finished that book, I attempted to go back to reading Perks of Being a Wallflower, which I started before the Bibliothon. And I also attempted to pick back up Clockwork Angel, which has been a did not finish several times now. I keep picking it up and putting it down and picking it up and putting it down, and it's an issue. That's a real problem. But the problem now was that I put myself into a reading slump by reading The Iron Daughter, and all I wanted to do was finish the series. And that's an issue when you don't own the rest of the series yet. So I didn't read a whole lot else. I just sort of would pick up books and put them back down, but nothing was The Iron Queen, which is what I wanted to be reading. So I don't know what to tell you guys. Sorry. I chose a bad book for a Bibliothon because it put me into a reading slump. Alright, I think that is it for my wrap-up. I hope you guys had as much fun as I did, and I'm definitely going to try and keep my schedule a little bit clearer for the next one so that I have some more time to read than I did during this one, because this week ended up being pretty chaotic. Alright, I'll talk to you guys later.